day everyone, it is Calxiyn here, and if you enjoyed this video, you should subscribe for more Shadows House videos. Join the Discord server if you want to talk with me and other Shadows House fans. We definitely need more Shadows House fans in the Discord server for sure, because it's like me and like 4 other people, and we sort of talk. I mean, obviously you should talk in the comments, because that helps the video like get engagement and stuff, but like the Discord server is fun too, and I just like changed it up so it's all pretty and everything. There's a little coffee cup emoji for the Shadows House chat. And so, what else am I saying? Yeah, if you want to see the full-length reaction to this episode and then all of the previous ones, they are up on Patreon. They are my full-length reactions, but it's with a subtitle and timer. It's a you press play when I press play, so you basically, you know, you have your own Funimation account, you press play with my reaction, and so we're all supporting the show that way. And you can see all of the ones that I've done like previously. So it's basically like less than $1 per like reaction at this point if you're at the Royal Advisor tier. And that would also be a good way to support me as well. Like, obviously, I love the show. I would not give up the show for anything. It doesn't matter how many views, like, the videos get. They could get 100. I would still cover the show. But, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, Cal, why are you covering this? It doesn't get as many views. You get more views doing My Hero Academia. But it's not about the views. Like, I love the show. I love the community. I'm gonna keep doing it no matter what. But if, as a member of the Shadows House community, you have enjoyed these videos and you want to support me, that is a good way to do so. Maybe we can prove some of those My Hero Academia fans wrong. And nothing's wrong with My Hero Academia, okay? It's just something that I've been like really annoyed at. I guess like I'm gonna start Odd Taxi soon, even though it's done. But the reason why I didn't do Odd Taxi was because I felt all this pressure to like cover My Hero Academia, even though I was kind of like lukewarm and my heart was set on Odd Taxi. Like, I'm really glad that I covered Shadows House despite like you know what I mean, like that pressure. I kind of chose one. I chose the show I really wanted to do, and then My Hero Academia, but I should have just done Odd Taxi and Shadows House at the same time. But I'm still doing it, and I know that that's gonna happen. That's gonna happen when I start covering Odd Taxi, is people are gonna be like, why don't you cover a more popular show? It's because I don't care, especially if like the fans are really, you know, engaging and supportive. It doesn't matter how many views it gets. It matters like the community that you build around doing the reviews, in my opinion. I feel like there's a higher engagement rate on Shadows House compared to something like My Hero. You know what I mean? So like, that's my opinion, sis. Anyway, why did I go on this tangent again? I don't remember. And so yeah, we're just gonna get into it. But it's like, these are our last times together until season 2. You know what I mean? Unless things go really bad and I have to cover the manga. So ultimately, like, it's good to kind of get it all out there now that like I've loved covering this show. I love you guys. No matter what happens, we'll see you on the other side. Oh, it's not that dramatic, but you know what I mean. Anyway, why don't we just get into it? Let's go. So everything points to this being Edward, but and like, okay, so that looks like he's using his soot power to just change his voice. However, morphs are mimicking creatures, right? They mimic. So couldn't a morph just mimic Edward's appearance? And I don't know about his clothes, but you know what I mean? Like, maybe that's not Edward. Maybe it's another morph who's just pretending to look like Edward, you know? Because they're, like, mimicking. They could mimic anyone, can't they? Oh, no! Do not drink anything! Oh, gosh. Oh, damn! Emilicio was like, I'm not telling, I'm not a snitch! Oh, her stomach. No, she didn't eat. She didn't get to finish her bread. Well, listen, you didn't know that you were gonna get kidnapped, sis. Oh, man. Okay, no, that kind of does sound like Edward. Okay. Yeah, Sean's smart. Oh, see, Emilicio said that. Oh, that's so nice. Oh. Well, you guys could all disguise yourself as veiled dolls. They go there, don't they? Yup, I do like that. I like the reference to the trap. He got it. He got it. Oh yeah, because Edward got in after all. That makes sense. Oh, so he did feed her. Oh, she's pretending. Oh, well, that's so fucking sad. That's so fucking sad. Why would you do this? Oh my gosh! Edward, you can't break this girl! True. Unless someone has psychic powers that could erupt right now, unless somebody has telepathy. Patrick! Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. Unless Rum just shows up because Shirley's morph was in there. Who? Who the fuck is that? Oh, Barbie, no! That's not good! Oh, no. Huh? I'm so confused. Is it Rum? Oh. Oh, yeah, she controlled the doll. Oh my god, Louise? That's pretty cool. I get it. She manipulated the doll's thinking. What if it's Rum under there, though? That'd be so funny if they, like, mind control. Like, Rum was coming to help them anyway, and they just mind control her. That'd be pretty funny. Oh. Oh, I like seeing their personalities. Damn. Barbie knows they couldn't have been having a heated conversation because he's still brainwashed, right? No, Barbie knows. Barbie knows something's whack. Look at how she looked there. Oh. Oh, he's still fucked up. Patrick! Oh! Okay, well, I guess that was enough. The power of love. Alright, well, you know what, Louise? You did pretty good. So, you know. Damn, Louise just wanted to show up. I like that. Oh, I see. I like that for her character, though. Like, you know, this idea of self-preservation. Oh, she broke too. That's interesting. I wonder why, though. I like that. Rolly! Oh my god, that's so smart. I actually really like that. She could, like, feel if Rolly's, like, in range, you know? Oh, look at all of them helping. Wow, that's so scary. This is scary. I'm scared. There's like the big knights in the background. Like the knight armor. Okay, y'all can go home. Oh my god, what if Barbie just pops out of the corner and is like, what the fuck are you guys doing, bro? I don't like that. I don't like whatever that was. I'm just looking for Shirley. Oh, a cellar? Okay. I don't think that that's it. I don't think that it's down there. That must be something else. Damn. And we just get... It's Shirley! What the fuck was the box? What? I love how they just threw that in there. Oh. Oh. Damn, I love that. Oh, it's them. Oh, it's not Kate. Oh, man. Damn, are they gonna be like, sis? They're not even surprised. Oh. 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 Alright everybody, let us get into the review. Now what's interesting about this episode is it just feels off to me. It's not that I didn't like it, right? Because I think that's a very, strong word to use. It's not like I hated it or that I didn't like it. It just feels off. And I can't really explain why. I can't articulate why, because there have been episodes that have been quote-unquote slow before, right? A lot of people think that the very first episode was a little bit, slow in that way. But I really enjoyed that because it was oh, there was intrigue, all of that stuff. There was stuff to learn. And so maybe that's why. But there's just something about this episode that I feel like it's the weakest out of all of them. And I can't really put my finger on it or anything. It's just that's how I sort of feel. And so while I was thinking about oh, well, what do I want to say in the review? The answer is, well, there's not really that much to say. And I know if this video ends up being an hour, y'all are going to be oh, really, Cal? What do you mean there wasn't that much? But really, there's only a couple things that I can particularly think of to touch on in detail. And so I think that we just need to see, this could be kind of the cart that is rolling up the hill, and next episode we're gonna go wee, because there was some exciting and thrilling stuff that was happening. It's just there's something to me from a review perspective, something just feels off. And I know that that's gonna get repetitive if I keep saying that, because I really enjoyed watching the episode, but I really struggled to sit down and do my review for some reason. And again, that could just be how I'm feeling today or whatever, but that's just sort of how I feel. Yeah, so I did think that it was interesting to note that the Soot hourglasses kind of come back into play right here, with this shot, and Edward is making tea, obviously, and so I guess that was just, the timer for the tea. And so Emilicio is who are you? And obviously we see the hourglass kind of stop, so that's kind of our first hint. I mean, I'm sure other characters use the hourglass, right? But that's kind of a direct parallel to the debut. And then we also see, I guess, Edward, right? Not Ed, but Edward, Shadow Edward, using his Soot power, and I guess his Soot power has to do with pitch, not just in music, but also with speaking, so he is disguising his voice right here. And so he says, tea is truly a fine beverage. Pour boiling water upon the leaves, and so I'll just show you guys the teapot just very quickly. There's nothing really to say about it. It looks like a teapot. I can't really discern anything that may be important in that way. There was a marking later in the episode that I did think was important, but yeah, just a teapot. Replace the teapot's lid and patiently let it brew. The key is not to be hasty. Then open the lid and stir gently with a spoon. So he's talking about tea, right? He's talking about making tea, but I don't think it's about making tea. I feel that this is supposed to be some sort of representation of his plans or something. This is how you make the perfect plot. This is how you rise to the third floor, okay? You can't be hasty. You stir gently. Plant those seeds of, I don't know, of growth, I guess, to get to the third floor. You know what I mean? I feel like it's a metaphor of some kind. Pour it through a tea strainer. And so again, that could be getting rid of the malcontents or failing people during the debut, and then finally enjoy the aroma. So I feel could he just be a tea themed, I guess, sure. But I do think that it's supposed to be some sort of metaphor for the whole debut process situation. See, he also says this is how adults drink it. And so again, I feel that's supposed to be this is how the adult world works, basically. We're all conniving and backstabbing and stuff, I guess. And so then he asks, are you not thirsty? Just a little. Let us prepare you a cup with plenty of sugar. That is, if you answer these questions. And so I thought that this was interesting, just because this was standard interrogation tactics, I guess. Oh yeah, do you want a Coke? Do you want a Pepsi? Do you want a cup of water? That sort of good cop thing. I watch too much true crime, and so I think something I was watching the other day mentioned that, oh, now the officer is gonna offer him a Coke, not for DNA or anything, but just to seem friendly and stuff like that. Your mistress is a malcontent, is she not? And so I think it's very interesting how they've translated it to malcontent, because that makes it sound more of a, I guess, an object or some kind of parasite, whereas, and they are parasites, right? Whereas if they said traitor, that's almost like a person. And so it's almost like he sees Kate as I don't know if that's the direct translation or not, but to me it's almost like he sees Kate as a virus, right? That's gonna destroy their perfect system or something. Not even a person person, not a traitor, like a malcontent, like a, you know, a faulty piece of code, like something like that, or like a virus, like a computer virus, a normal virus. That's just kind of the vibe that I got right here. And I really like Emilico's defiance here. So she says, I have nothing to say to you. I don't know who you are, but I won't say a word without Mistress Kate's permission. Is that so? Threatening me is a waste of time. And then she said, I can go without drinking anything for a, right? So she was gonna say a long time, but then her stomach rumbles. Now with this, could this be like more direction to that theory I had about like her, you know, maybe growing up a bit poorer and like food and all that stuff, like food security? Because she says, I can go without drinking anything for a, and obviously like that's a lie. Her stomach is rumbling. But I do wonder if she said that because she, in the past, had to like do so, like go without food for a couple of days. Like now she's just used to getting fed every day, so it's a little bit different. But that's something I thought of. I'm like, well, why, like, what if why she said that is because, you know, she genuinely could, but not anymore, because she's sort of like gotten in the habit of having like consistent food and everything. And then I love how she says, she's like, oh man, I should have eaten the bread before I left, which I thought was really funny because it like says, how did you, like, how were you supposed to expect kidnapping? You know what I mean? How were you supposed to like predict that you should have had the bread before you got kidnapped, right? So I thought that that was a nice little bit of like levity to this episode, you could say. So what's interesting about this is that he says you lack a sense of apprehension, and I think that that's like basically that Emilico has no awareness of her situation, if that makes sense. Like she has no fear, like she's just yelling at him like, no, I won't say anything. Like she's being pretty aggressive, like as aggressive as Emilico can be. And so he's like, you lack a sense of apprehension, like you should be, you know, feeling a little bit like more like careful and cautious, like I kidnapped you, you know. And then he looks at his pocket watch. So again, the Soot glass hourglass thing is not the only way that they can tell time, obviously, but there's still plenty of time. And so I think that what he means is like there's still plenty of time before Lord Grandfather wakes up and he can take his findings to him. Yeah, because he says this right here. He's like, I'll expose everything come morning and present it before Lord Grandfather. And so then they basically have a planning scene here, and there's not like so much to talk about. The only thing that I do kind of want to touch on is like basically the intelligence of like John and Sean here. Now John does emit some soot like right in this like line of dialogue, but again, that's just like him being like irritated about Louise, right? I think it's funny because it was like, oh, like you guys excluded me, and I'm like, yeah, now we know why, but she is helpful later. And so I think she says, well, where's your brilliant idea? And what's funny about this is that like John is like, well, nothing comes to mind yet, and it's because it's not that he doesn't have brilliant ideas, but he is more of the punching while Sean is more of the brains, right? So I really liked this at least, right? Because Kate was like, hey, do you have any ideas, right? Treating him like a person and not just like a face, right? Like they all know at this point that sometimes their dolls have better ideas than their masters, right? Like even Patrick and Ricky leads him at times. And so I just really like this, like how Kate acknowledges, because she says, you're always so calm and observant, or so Emilico said, please share your advice, right? And so she's also like trusting Emilico, which again is something I said last week, and I feel like further contextualizes why Kate was so trusting with John, because I did like see a couple like bits of criticism about that, like, oh, you know, she's been so careful this whole time and she just like spilled all the beans to him, but she has this added context like from Emilico and her like kind of adventure with Sean, like, and I think that even during the debut you see like Sean's like, oh, is it a security measure of some kind, right? Like he is obviously like the thinking one. It makes sense now to trust him, and especially with this, like I feel like Kate was basically like, hey, if I'm gonna tell anyone the truth, if I need a partner in crime, like they are the partner in crime. And I do really like how John agrees, because again, we have all this like context now that he knows that they're human. That's right, you really are smart, aren't you? And he's like, okay, well, give me a minute, right? And so now he's like basically been thinking for, you know, the first time since he's been brainwashed, like in a sense. But yeah, basically in this scene, they just figure out that they can get through using the same tactics that Edward did. And so it wasn't like that big brain of a moment, but I still like how they came to the conclusion. The only other thing about this is I do like the callback to the traps, and I wonder if that will be relevant later, especially because there is the question of how they're actually gonna get out of this, because like on one hand, Edward kidnapped someone, right? Like I can't see Kate necessarily getting in trouble for going to the adults wing to get her doll back when Edward kidnapped her. Like, is that allowed, you know? Because I did see some people say on the Reddit, because you guys know that's what I do, is that before I make my reviews, I go on Reddit and I see what people are saying. And some people were pointing out, like, hey, you know, like, that's kind of like, because obviously, like, Kate's breaking the rules. Like, how are they gonna get out of this? But at the same time, I'm just like, but, like, is Edward allowed to just kidnap people? Because there was just kind of this argument between, like, one of two sides. Like, first of all, Edward's plan is, like, dumb, because if Kate, like, tells someone, yeah, he kidnapped my living doll, bro, right, obviously, without finding out anything substantial, that would get him in trouble. On the other hand, people were saying, well, you know, they value the rules above all else, and children are not supposed to go in the wing, and just the act of Kate sneaking in would prove that she's, like, defiant and disobedient and stuff. And so I understand both sides to that, but I think that I fall somewhere more in the middle, where I'm like, I can't see Edward kidnapping someone go unnoticed by the third floor, you know, and so I still think that there's a way to get him in trouble, but I think that ultimately this is gonna end on some sort of, like, silent truce, if that makes sense, where Edward still wants to catch out Kate, but he can't right now, and I'm gonna explain my theory as to why, that he's basically going to just, like, give up and pretend that this whole thing never happened, like, in a way, and I'll get to that when we get there, because it basically has to do with Shirley, okay? I thought that this scene was really cute, like, of Emilicio pretending to eat, like, she's pretending to eat bread so she feels better, and I feel like Edward did not expect this, and I feel like that especially, like, with adults that are a bit more, how do you say it? Like, not nihilistic, but, like, pessimistic and stuff, and, like, oh, yeah, it's cutthroat out there. You know, like, with adults in anime with that kind of attitude, their worst adversary is, like, a sunshine child, you know? Like, that annoys them more than anything else in the world as a character who just, like, can see the best throughout any situation, you know what I mean? And so I feel like that, like, at this point, I saw someone say this, somebody was like, no, Edward, you don't understand. You didn't kidnap me. I'm stuck here with you. Like, in that sort of, like, way where it's like, yeah, like, Emilicio has not been kidnapped by Edward. Really, Edward is being tortured by Emilicio. And I thought that that was really funny, and that's just a great way to sort of look at it. Like, she's just too much for him. Like, he did not expect this outcome. And so he's like, yeah, you're a stubborn one, but how much longer can you keep up this charade? And she says, I don't need to, I'm not hungry anymore. And so I think what he meant was, like, this positivity. Like, oh, well, you know, you must, like, be crying and get worried that nobody's gonna save you sooner or later, right? Like, he thought that he could, like, break Emilicio's positivity, in my opinion. Like, I think that he thinks that it's kind of, like, fake or whatever, but it's not, bitch. Like, it's not, you know? And so I thought that that was, like, really interesting, that he's like, oh, yeah, like, you know, like, this charade and all that stuff. Like, I think that he thinks her personality is a charade, like, just to hide the pain and everything of getting kidnapped. But, like, no, like, that's her actual personality, so... And I really like this because he says, you may be freed from your bonds if you reveal what Kate intends to do. And so then she says the answer is no, and I think I missed something, but he says, well, then you'll have to do, like, then you'll just have to stay here and, like, be quiet or something, right? You know what I mean? You'll just have to deal with being, like, kidnapped, and she says, I say no to that too, right? And so then what if Kate's no, right? And so I think that it's, like, supposed to be like, oh, well, you know, if you won't tell me, like, you'll stay kidnapped and, like, you know, sad, I guess. And Emilico's like, no. And then Ed's like, okay, well, if you're saying no, then tell me about Kate. Because he goes, tell me about Kate, to, well, then you're stuck like this, to tell me about Kate again, right? So he's basically thinking, like, oh, okay, well, if you won't tell me about Kate, right, you'll just have to, like, sit and rot in here, right? And then when Emilico says no again, he's like, okay, well, then tell me about Kate. But he doesn't understand that Emilico is saying no to everything. Like, she's basically like, you will not break my spirit no matter what you do. I'm just saying no to, like, your whole thing, you know? Like, I'm saying no to everything that you're suggesting. And again, I just thought that this was really funny because this must be, like, so infuriating for him because he's like, do you understand the situation you're in? And, like, she's just asleep. I got sleepy because I'm so full. And I thought this was great, and you can see how irritated he is. But I thought that, like, this, like, debated me. I thought that when she was saying this, we'd finally get, like, Edward's backstory, and we didn't. You know, I thought that he was finally gonna tell her why he's doing all this, but, like, we didn't get there. Maybe next episode, I don't know. But she says, I know, let's have a delightful conversation. manipulation. After all, I can't imagine you're doing this because you want to, right? And so you could look at this two ways. Is this Emilicio being naive? Maybe. But is it a hint towards Edward's motivations in that theory that I had before, that he's not really a villain, but he wants to create a new world where we don't, like, mind wipe people, right? Or I guess, body snatch people is what I should say, because he's, like, out here memory wiping people still. But, like, my whole idea was that he doesn't want dolls to be taken over anymore. He wants to create, like, a new world where even through unification, you have partnership, you work together, because that is how I thought that he was, like, working with Ed and everything. So that was my whole thing, is that he wanted to get to the third floor, overthrow Lord Grandfather, and then make, like, this new world. But, like, as the episodes continue, I'm a little bit more like, is that really what you want to do, buddy? Because, like, I don't know, you seem just to be evil sometimes, right? You know, like, obviously he's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get rid of the malcontents, but, like, if he was really, like, this kind of, like, revolutionary, couldn't the malcontents help you? Because I always thought, like, oh, he just wants to sacrifice Kate so he can be like, well, see, Lord Grandfather, I'm so trustworthy, I would never betray you. Like, sort of as, like, not necessarily like, a cop-out, that's not really the right word for it, but you know what I mean, like, a reverse psychology thing, I guess. Like, for him to basically, like, present himself as this trustworthy, loyal person, he wants to sacrifice another traitor so he can be a trusted traitor and do the betraying later on. Like, that's a whole theory that I had, but I don't know anymore. I'm a little about you, Edward. I can't talk about Mistress Kate, but I'll listen to all you have to say. And so I really like that. She's like, hey, you know, like, why don't you tell me about your backstory, about your doll, about anything? And he's just like, LOL, no, right? And so I just love her attitude. That would certainly be more fun than this, is like her little smile. Oh, he's just like, you'll be the death of me, right? So again, it's kind of that, like, cynical. That's the word I wanted, not nihilistic. Like, those cynical adults, like, the worst thing for a cynical adult is, like, a bubbly child, you know? Like, or just protagonists in general. It doesn't even necessarily need to be, like, an adults versus, like, kids thing. Like, I think just in general, like, in anime, like, that's such a big trope, you know? I don't really have a lot to say about the planning scene. Like, again, it's just one of those things where there isn't really anything to analyze in it, but I did like this moment between John and Sean. Of course, that's how Edward pulled it off. Impressive, Sean. You're so perceptive. You're embarrassing me, Master John. Like, I just thought that that was really, really cute, like a little moment between them, and I thought that that was nice. And I do like how, you know, even though you can't see John's face and Sean is not acting as his face, you can just tell, like, John will too. Like, he's very expressive in his body language, and that's true of past episodes as well. I mean, they kind of need to be without facial expressions, but I just really liked, like, how they were able to express, like, his want to, like, kind of help and be the hero here and everything like that. But I like how Sean keeps him grounded, and that's why they're such a good partnership, because John is like, yeah, let's punch stuff, but Sean is like, okay, well, that's, like, risky, don't do that. So to skip ahead a bit, they're almost there. Like, they almost figured it out without Barbie having to tell them, because they're like, well, why would somebody with power, like, do this, like, sneaky stuff? You know, that's basically what they're saying. Like, why take such a risk? And so they were almost on the answer. It's because he wants to, like, social climb. It's because he wants power, right? And he doesn't have power, and so only somebody desperate would do something like that. And so they're close, but they need Barbie to help them later. I do like Louise's involvement, though, because she's just like, hey, you need a uniform, like, how will you manage that? And I feel like she already knew the answer. I think that she knew that she could try to use her Soot power on a veiled doll, but she does say later that she just wanted to show off, and I feel like that's basically, you know, what went down. Like, she wanted to show off to Kate, and so she's just asking a rhetorical question, almost. She's just like, but how will you do this? I know, I'll help you. Like, that's the vibe that I sort of get from her. So then we get Barbie and Barbara over here not looking too happy. I am glad that we are seeing them, just because, like, I heard, okay, that the manga kind of went in a different direction with, like, exposition and stuff, that they basically focused on, like, here are the Star Bearers, here's what you do post-debut. Like, they kind of had, like, those chapters after, and, like, stuff like that, and so apparently the Star Bearers were very involved in that, and so I was kind of sad when I heard, like, oh man, I wanted to see the exposition. Like, I feel like that they wanted to do this to end the anime off on, like, a bang, you know, like, there's kidnapping, there's, you know, drama, there's intrigue, and, like, exposition wouldn't necessarily be dramatic, but, and I guess this is where my, like, little criticism comes in. We can only tell with next episode, but in my opinion, I feel like instead of going anime only, what they should have done is like broken the brainwashing and then like had like this like resolve, I guess, moving forward. Like I feel like that it would have been more impactful for them to break the brainwashing, have that be like the end of episode 11 or something. Let's just pretend. I don't know how you would elongate certain things for that to be possible, but anyway. And then for episode 12, so this episode, they could do the entire conversation about like, you know, Emilicio, actually you're human, da-da-da-da-da, like, will you resolve to help take down Shadow's house with me? And then it could be like, yes, we will, and it could be this big like, right? And if you really need a mystery to like tease next season, you could do that. I don't know what you tease though, because again, I'm an anime only, but that's sort of something I was thinking, is that it may have been a better idea to end on like, you know, oh yeah, we freed her from brainwashing and now Emilicio's like, well, now that I know all this, like we need to work even harder to find out the secrets of Shadow's house, right? Like it could have just been something like that, and that would have been like a nice positive way to end the show, and maybe a little tease, right? Like maybe we see Rum and Shirley in the dungeon or something, you know what I mean? And then like cut to black or something, so you could still have that little mystery or something in there. But yeah, I don't know if this was exactly the way to go. And so why did I start talking about this? It was because of them two, wasn't it? Yeah. Anyway, and so with that in mind, that's just sort of my opinion, is that I feel like it would have been nice to end it off like after she had been free from brainwashing and everything, and like then they could have like, I don't know, they could have done something else. They didn't need to do all this. They could have been like, and now like we'll go through daily life and we'll try to do the thing. Like they could have shown off some of that, but had it in like an exciting way, like that they are like doing daily life now, but they're doing it in like super spy kind of, I don't know. But yeah, anyway, so everybody goes to escape, and the only thing that I really liked about that was like John's like, yeah, I'll punch it open. Like he just wants to punch everything now that he can punch things, and I think that that's great. But then they say, you must be mistaken. So this is about like, oh, you know, you must be mistaken. No voices here, ha ha ha, right? But then she says, if that's the case, you won't take issue. So what's interesting is that Barbara says, as a star bearer, Barbara will search every inch. But then, if that's the case, you won't take issue, Barbie, get to work. And so think about that, right? She's saying, right? She's like, okay, well, I am gonna search every inch, except it's really Barbie doing all the work. And I find that kind of interesting, because I get it. Like, she's supposed to act as face, but she's also acting like as body too. And I guess that makes sense, but I just think it's funny that she's like, yeah, Barbara will search every inch, except you're gonna have to do everything, Barbie. Is that why Barbie's so unhappy? Because she has to do all the work while her Shadow Master has to get all the credit? I would be mad too, because she's like, yeah, Barbie, get to work. I'll search every inch, but actually I'm just gonna stand here while you do everything, right? And so I think that that's an interesting thing to think about with them. At first I thought their dynamic would be different for some reason, and I still stand by this idea that like she makes Barbie be more aggressive, so she will come off as more aggressive than she actually is, because she's aggressive in like, you know, stares can kill, while Barbie is like aggressive physically, I feel. And so I feel like that she's like, okay, Barbie, like I know that this isn't exactly my expression, but up the ante, like be as aggressive as you possibly can, because I want to be taken seriously. Like that would be a very interesting way to go, but now I'm sort of like, I don't know if they have like that sort of relationship anymore, I guess, because I saw it more as like, you know, like Barbie kind of wanted to help like Barbara have that sort of confidence, if that makes sense, that it was more of a partnership maybe compared to like some of the other dolls. But now I just kind of see Barbara as like bossy and Barbie just miserable. I don't know. So Louise uses her soot power again, and I didn't get a great picture of it, but it is shaped in a little heart, or at least that's what I saw while I was rewatching the episode. Louise's soot can control dolls. Have you forgotten already? Now this is interesting because I did see something that this was not exactly Louise's soot power, and I don't know the specifics of that, but people were saying that they changed it. I'm going to go off on an assumption that maybe it was not supposed to be anybody else outside of Lou, because I can't think of like, because people were saying that they didn't change it entirely, right? Like they changed a thing about it, if that makes sense. And so obviously like I'm not one like reading spoilers because I'm an anime only, but just based off of like that, I'm gonna guess that because people didn't say that last week in regards to Lou, but are saying this this week in regards to the other dolls, that it is because of the other dolls that people are saying they changed it. However, I would have to wonder how useful that would be, like, going far, because, okay, like, John can punch stuff. Great. Good for him. Even if they unify, John can still punch stuff. But in terms of, like, Louise's whole, like, mental thing, you would have to do something where you can control other shadows, which doesn't seem to be possible because they already said that, like, Soot doesn't affect other shadows, right? And so I feel like that this is kind of an inevitable conclusion because after Louise and Lou unify, like Ed and Edward, right? Because Edward still uses his power when he's like in shadow, right? And it's like all of that musical pitch stuff. It's still useful to him. Like, wouldn't Lou be completely useless, right, after a certain point? And you could make the argument that maybe, like, that's what, like, the show could, like, showcase, right, is that, like, even after you pass the debut, like, there's another way to fail, because if your power sucks ass, you know, like, you're gonna get cut again, right, like, you're gonna get failed again, like, if there's another debut in the future before you go to the adult wing or something. But I feel like that this just makes a bit more sense, because why would you give someone a power that you can use just on your own doll if the end goal is to unify anyway and you don't need to do that anymore? Like, I don't know. And so, yeah, that's just my, like, kind of speculation. I hope that you guys don't mind that I'm sort of getting into the territory of what they've changed, because I don't look at explicit stuff. Like, before, when they changed, like, that character that they changed, I only know them as that character. I don't know what that character does. I don't know who it was. I don't know where they were. I kind of know where they were supposed to show up, just because, like, obviously it was the episode where people was like, where the fuck is this character, right? But, like, I'm not one to know, like, all of the context. I am interested, though, in those, like, small changes, especially now that we're, like that we're going entirely anime only, right? I think it's important to be mindful of those changes, especially because I learned from Promise Neverland, right? Like, I know that they changed and deleted, like, entire arcs in Neverland, and look at how that turned out, right? So, like, you know, at first, I was like, no, I'm, like, strict anime only. I don't want to know if they changed anything. That's how I felt before. But then when Neverland was happening, I sort of switched my mind to be like, okay, I want to know if they've changed something, but not enough to, like, spoil me. I don't want to know who, I don't want to know what, right? I don't want to know, like, things that explicit, but I do want to know stuff like an entire arc changed or this person's power changed. In this case, if her power did change, I think it makes sense. Like, I think it makes sense to change, and I feel like that probably would have been inevitable, like, in the manga. Like, maybe there just wasn't an opportunity for Louise to use it, like, on another doll, and so she just thought that she could only use it on Lou. Or maybe they test it out in the manga, and then, like, she's not able to do it because she needs to, like, increase her power. Like, I don't know if it's either one of those things, but I don't think that this is so, like, outrageous, I guess, like, in terms of changes go. Like, this is kind of a change where I'm like, it was kind of dumb in the first place to have her power only affect her doll if the end result is to get rid of her doll anyway. And so, yeah, that's just sort of my thoughts on that. So I found something very interesting right here. It must have been our heated conversation. We'll try to be more careful, right? Because she's like, yeah, there's nobody around, you know, because they escaped in time. And so I really like this. I do like the mimicking. I think that Ricky does a great job at facial expressions. And then she's like, since when have you been on watch duty? So now he's, like, asking questions, right? Now he's like, inquiring a little bit, because I guess this hasn't happened before. After Edward was put in charge of the children's wing, he told us to report any trouble, no matter how small. And so that's interesting, because Edward's like, you know, like, if a mouse moves, I want to hear about it, right? And so they pick up on that. They're like, oh, Edward's in charge now, because I guess they weren't before, but I do feel like there's missing context, because who was in charge before? Was it Barbara, and then she got demoted, right? Because they kind of say, like, oh, you know, since when have you been on Night Watch, as if, like, they didn't used to do Night Watch, or Barbara was too high to do Night Watch. But it sounds like what happened, and see, this is why I wish they did more exposition about the Star Bears. It did kind of sound like that maybe Barbara was the leader of the children's wing, and that she basically got demoted in place of Edward taking control, because she says perhaps the debut was well received, so it seems, but why bother reporting minor problems? And then she says he's quite the social climber, it's so infuriating, and you see that she's like visibly upset right here. And so at first I was like, I don't really like get it, like I don't know how that's in Barbara's personality because we haven't seen that much of her, but I would like to speculate that it's possible that she was in charge and she got demoted in favor of Edward being in charge of the children's wing, and now he's bossing her around. And that's also why she could have been the one to talk to him originally and be like, yo, why are you closing the gate, right? Like she's the one that went up to him, and the reason why could be like she's the one in charge, and so now she's been demoted in favor of promoting Edward, and she's angry that she is now like reporting to him, which could be very interesting if like they do find out that like Edward is doing kidnapping and stuff like this, because like what if like Barbara's like, yeah, I hate that guy too, like fuck him, you know, like what if we turn him in and say he's doing some weird ass shit, and then like, you know, like we'll rise up instead, like he'll get kicked out of the children's wing, I don't know. But that's sort of like my first thought to this whole situation, because there is something that happens right here that I'm a little bit like about, like this could have just been like, oh, and I'm watching you face, but they did zoom in on Barbie looking at Patrick and Ricky suspiciously, and so I do wonder if she knows something, because I think it would be very interesting for them to somehow be a part of this, and for them to be like, Edward, bro, what the fuck, like, you know, we're gonna tell on you, like, why the fuck did you kidnap someone, you know, I don't care if you're in charge of the children's wing, why are you torturing the children, bro, like, that could be a very interesting angle, and then ultimately, like, I have like this idea, and I don't know if it's gonna be Barbara or if it's gonna be Shirley, but I have this idea that Edward is basically, he's not gonna be defeated, they're not gonna kill him or something, but they're basically going to come into a stalemate. I think that's the best way to explain it, where Edward will not be able to go through with his plan because of an obstacle, and that obstacle will be, hey, like, we'll, you know, tell on your ass, or maybe there's something going on with Shirley, right? Like, I feel like that Edward will kind of be like, yeah, I'm letting you go this time, but I'll keep an eye on you, right? Like that sort of thing. And then that is how, you know, things will, I guess, progress forward, because you can't really defeat Edward right now. I mean, I guess you could, but like, I don't know, that just seems kind of like a waste, because I was like, bro, I thought he had like a whole thing going on. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I put too many expectations on Edward. Like I thought he was going to be nuanced. Maybe he isn't. Maybe he's not nuanced, but I think it would be a waste to just get rid of him, like trying to sniff out the malcontents at this point. I feel like that it would be a better idea for him to run into a stalemate here, know that he can't do this again, and then like be, I guess, more sneaky in the future with his tactics, but still committed to trying to catch out Kate or something. Like, I feel like that just kind of makes more sense. And so whether it's because it's like Barbie, or because it's, you know, I don't know, like whether it's Barbie or Shirley or something, like I feel like it would be compelling for him to be stopped in a way, like say like Kate and Emilicio just escape and they go back to the children's wing and everything. Like what's Edward gonna say? Like, oh yeah, Lord Grandfather, I kidnapped Kate and her doll and she ran away. Can you believe that? Like, no, he can't say that. So if they just get away, it'll be something like, yeah, like I almost had you meddling kids, you know, but like in the future, like I'll try something else. Like he's not gonna stop. It'll be that sort of thing, because like I can't see him being like, oh, you know what Kate did? She came into the adults wing because I took her doll, because everybody's gonna be like, what the fuck do you mean? You took her doll, like, you know, like that, it can't be that. So I think that if she just escapes, she can escape with the help of Barbara or Shirley or whoever, and like have a little blackmail on Edward, I guess, and then they'll just be in a stalemate. Edward will be like, you won this time, but next time I'll get you, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, so this is another spot that was kind of like, right, so, but we learned something that might help Emilicio. And then Ricky says, why do this, huh? Why go out of your way to help that living doll? And so what's interesting here is I'm a little bit confused, because I'm not sure what broke the spell. Because I'm sure that the coffee does wear off, considering the fact that Mia and Rosemary do, like, have their own personalities. They're not just brainwashed all the time. However, like, you know, we had to punch John, or I guess John had to punch Sean. You know, Kate did it, like, the traditional way, like, with the water, and everything. And so I'm just wondering, like, how it broke here, because with Louise you can make the argument that maybe she broke it because she decided to break the mind control, like using her own soot power. Like she basically like soot powered Louise out of it, like, you know, soot power plus soot power equals back to normal sort of thing, like her own soot power, and like her being, I guess, in her heart wanting to break Louise out of the brainwash did it, or I guess Lou out of the brainwash. That could have just done it, right? Like it could have been something like that, but in this case, I don't have an explanation. I don't know. I'm confused, right? And so that's the only thing where I'm just like, I don't get it. Because I get it. Again, with Louise, you could always say, well, you know, she was controlling Lou with the soot power, and so she decided to stop controlling her, and so she just went back to normal entirely. But with this, I'm like, and I do like this though, because this is like pretty romantic, and this is like kind of hinting at like the love triangle stuff. Like her name is Emilicio, right? Like I feel like that was a very much, yeah, I'm in love with her. Like I feel like Patrick is definitely in love with Emilicio, okay? And then he says, and you are Ricky, and that is enough to break him out. Now, I think that there is one explanation I can think of, and it's not like surefire or anything, but I was sort of thinking about this in the sense that what if the reason why for all this, right? Like, I know that's just so vague. The reason why for all this, what the fuck does that mean, Cal? Okay, the reason for this, could it be because, in terms of, like, the rules? Because, okay, so somebody explained to me last week that it wasn't just punching Sean to death. It was making Sean punch back broke the rules of Shadow's house and therefore broke the brainwashing. Could it be possible that like a shadow having a relationship with a doll or being in love with a doll is forbidden, and the reason why Ricky broke out of the brainwashing was because of the same like kind of that reverse psychology kind of reason, right? Because like the whole thing again with John and Sean was it wasn't the punching, it was making Sean feel a way to break the rules, I guess, right? Like convincing Sean, or I guess tricking Sean into breaking the rules that broke him out in the entire brainwashing. And so I wonder if it's like, it's not just like, oh, power of love, but it's actually the fact that love is against the rules like that. And that could have either made Ricky realize one of two things. That one, Ricky likes Emilicio, or that he as face will have to like Emilicio if his shadow master likes Emilicio, like, you know what I mean? And so that just kind of broke him out, because he was like, well, wait a minute, I'm supposed to feel what Master Patrick feels, and Master Patrick feels something that is against the rules, and that snapped him out of it. Question mark? Or is it because like he already has feelings for Lou, and so it's possible that this like of you know, Patrick loving or liking, I guess, like let's not get too hasty, liking Emilicio could have broken out of it because he realized that he had his own free will and that he didn't want to be forced to love Emilicio just because Patrick may like Emilicio. I don't know. Again, this scene isn't like super serious or anything. I do like the no Master John, no punching. Like that's all he wants to do is punch. I do really like, again, how thoughtful and intelligent they're showing Sean as. They're like, yeah, we have to piece it together, like based on our memories, make a mental map. Like he's just so serious, and I love that. I also like this scene with like Kate and Lou and Louise and everything, like just like how she dresses up. It feels like very like girl sleepover party makeover for some reason, even though it is not that whatsoever. I do like this because, again, this is very much in Louise's character. She's just sort of like, well, I helped you, but, you know, I gotta save my own ass, so that's enough from me. And so I thought that that was pretty funny. And then she says, yeah, Louise merely wished to show off her soot power, and that can be, like, kind of untrue. Like, she could just be saying that, like, it's not like I like you anyway, Baka. Like, it could be one of those things, but I'm more inclined to think that genuinely she just wanted to show off, you know what I mean? Like, I think that seriously, that is why she helped, because she wanted to show everyone how useful she could be and how they were wrong for excluding her. That's a bit more of a nuanced, complex, and layered interpretation than her just wanting to show off. That she wanted to show off explicitly because they tried to exclude her before. And again, I do like this because it does show that, you know, Louise is kind of worried about her own skin, right? Like, it could have easily been us. If that happened, it would have been you that were abducted. But Louise would never let him lay a hand on you. And so again, like, this could be just like, oh, well, you know, she broke out again because, like, Louise basically, like, got rid of the soot power on her. But, like, from that line of dialogue, it could also be that sort of, like, breaking the rules sort of situation again, because she's just like, oh, you know, like, Louise would never let him lay a hand on you. I'm sure that it's, you know, in the rules that you can't fucking, like, fight, you know, an adult or anything. And so she's basically saying that she would fight for Lou, right? And that she would break the rules. And so it could be, again, one of those things. Like, her just saying that she would break the rules broke them out of, like, their little trances, I guess, right? Like, that they're so committed to that, because ultimately dolls are supposed to, like, reflect and be loyal to their masters, but now their masters are not loyal to the rules. And so it's possible that that could have been why, right? Like, the idea that Louise would, like, fucking fight Edward if he came near her. I don't know. That's just how I sort of see it. It could be either one of those things. I do like this scene, like, that they're like, oh man, they found us, let's run for it, because I feel like that gave a nice little bit of levity again. And I like this because they almost can't believe that it's her, and I think that they find this, I don't know how you could find this outfit, like, attractive, but I feel like that's like, oh my god, is that you? Like, you look cute, I guess? I don't know. I feel like that somehow, like, obviously, like, John would find her cute anyway. I really like right here how John and Sean, I almost said Patrick and Ricky, they help too, but I really like how they basically tell her the layout. Like, from our memory, I think it's like this, you'll get in this way. Like, I like the little strategy going on, but then they also come out of the room to help. Barbara had something interesting to say. Edward's in charge of Children's Wing, and he seeks to rise to the 3rd floor, right? Because they said, like, oh, he's a social climber, because, like, she didn't explicitly say that, but why would you have to social climb if you were at the top? Clearly you're not at the top. So I really like that they're smart enough to figure that out without her explicitly saying, like, yeah, he wants to rise to the 3rd floor. Like, the fact that he's a social climber, period, implies rising, right? And I thought this was so smart, like, for her to remember Rolly and sort of try to, like, sense him and stuff like that. Like, this, oh my god, this was like chef's kiss. This was probably my favorite, like, big brain moment, like, in the episode. I also, like, don't bungle this, because I think it was probably Patrick who said that, because I don't think that John would say something like that and, like, be like that harsh, I guess. But yeah, I just really like that. Like, that was, like, so big brain for her to use Rolly, and that was great. And I do really like here how, like, John is still trying to be, like, her knight in shining armor, right? Like, doesn't this worry you sick? John will go in your stead. And you actually see that she is smiling here, right? So she does find him endearing, even if she has, like, no romantic feelings or anything for him. You've already done more than enough, but thanks. And I really like that, right? That she's, like, smiling and she made friends, because that was the whole thing, is that Emily Co had made friends, but Kate did not make friends. Like, she was already, you know, trying to make enemies as soon as she went into the debut hall, but now you see how that has been turned on its head, and actually, you know, she is making friends. She's out here making friends, and I thought that was really nice. I don't have a lot to say about this part, but I do really like the shot composition here with, like, the light going towards the other light, the bridge between the two areas. I just thought that this was really, really cool and creepy and everything. And there was just one thing over here that I want to talk about really quickly. Obviously, they're all like, oh yeah, we should go back, da-da-da-da-da, but there is something right here, and it's that John, right, he looks, and then he, like, almost like he sees something, and then he turns away, like, almost like he heard something, or he thought he saw something, but he didn't, and I wonder if that could be Shirley, because remember, Shirley's morph, or at least what I think is Shirley's morph, it has the same bow, right? And so Shirley's morph has been running around, like, down the hallway and everything. Well, not down the hallway, she's been running around in Patrick's room, so it would only make sense that she would follow Patrick, like, this way to end up in the adult side of the quarters, and so I feel like that what John saw right here was Shirley's morph, but maybe it disappeared too quickly. It was like you see something out of the corner of your eye, but you're not sure what it is type of thing, because I feel like that, like, she must have come through at some point, because she ends up in the same area Kate's in, and so, like, she must have followed them here and kept running. Right? So we get the look of a couple objects here. Obviously, this is the teacup from the debut. We don't really know what this is. This could be the soot that they used to, again, brainwash everyone. Because they say perhaps they do something after they brew the coffee. And so, yeah, like they, you know, put in the soot. That's what they do, right? Or are they talking about something else? I don't know. That's the only confusing part about this bottle, is I didn't really get it. Like, it does look like, you know, they're just a bunch of bottles line up. And so it would make sense that these are the bottles bottles that have the soot in them that they use to like do the coffee, you know? But she already knew that. But she already knew that they were lacing the coffee, didn't she? And so that seems kind of like weird of a line for her to say, like, perhaps they do something after they brew the coffee. Like, sis, you already know what they do, right? Right? You know what they do. And so I don't know. That was just kind of weird to me. So then Edward says, I'm doing this for Kate's sake as well. I want to help before it's too late, but you must cooperate. I don't understand. As it stands, Kate is to be discarded, right? And so, you know, he's basically trying to trick her. Obviously, this isn't happening because you are useless. You are such a failure that Kate is unable to advance any higher. That is why she rebels against Shadow's house. So he's basically like making shit up, right? It's akin to a child's temper tantrum. It is merely out of spite. And so that's very interesting because he still doesn't know shit. He doesn't know why she's doing it. And like, I think that he may know that it's probably deeper than that, but he's trying to give Emilicio like a reason to doubt herself. Like, I'm sure he doesn't actually think that this is the reason, right? Like, I'm sure that he, you know, has other suspicions that it's a bit more complex and serious. But the thing is that he doesn't know, right? Like, he doesn't know anything. And so he's just trying to kind of give a reason that Emilicio may believe. If Emilicio doubts herself, she may be like, yeah, I guess I have been useless. Maybe you're right. Maybe that is why Kate's like this, right? But obviously, she knows the truth. Then we have, after all, you're always threading over trivial matters. You ignore the rules. Your failure to obey Shadow's house's code led Kate down the wrong path. And again, we know that this is not true. And so she says, but listen, I'm giving you a chance here. Confess to everything and I shall help Kate. You're the only one that can save her now. So out with it. What is Kate planning? And so again, I feel like that this is just one of those like manipulation things. I feel like that he doesn't know why she's doing it, but he knows that it's not for this reason. He's just trying to say this so Emilicio thinks that it's her fault, and so she will do this in order to save Kate, basically. That she cares about Kate so much that she will, you know, spill the beans in order to save her, so to speak. But I think Emilicio knows better, and based off what Kate told her, that just doesn't line up. And so I do like that, like, everything that Kate has done has instilled and reinforced in her that she is not useless and not a failure since day one. And she's thought about that multiple times up until this point. Like, think about her conversation with Rum, with Rum, where she's like, yeah, like, Kate, you know, we don't always get along, we do this, this, and this, but ultimately, like, she, you know, she cares about me, I think. And, like, those other times where she thought she was a failure, and then Kate, you know, showed her love and reinforced the fact that, like, Emilicio is who she needs to be. Like, at the debut, like, Kate's inner monologue and everything. I think that, like, that's where it really comes in. And so, like, the fact that Kate made sure to reinforce that in Emilicio has made her strong enough to, like, resist this trap. Now, here's the thing about this box. Obviously, there's some fucking mystery going on. It kind of looks like a tomb, to be honest, like, just like, or like, basically a tomb, like, where you would bury somebody. It also has, like, these things on it, which kind of look like eyes to me, like, so it could be, like, I don't know, that kind of thing. There's a lock on it. At first, I thought it was a cellar, but it definitely looks more like a casket. Like, it looks definitely like a casket, and then Kate sees that there is soot coming out of it, because she says, Rolly, if you're in there, move for Kate, give Kate a sign. But instead, like, she basically, I think, pulls out the soot that's, like, in the box, because there is soot coming out of it, but it is very faint. And so, like, what is this box exactly? On one hand, it could be, like, this is where all the morphs are, this is where, like, the soot supply is, like, it could be, like, something like that, you know what I mean? Like, maybe, like, this is where the morphs develop into morphs until they are, like, you know, grown enough to, like, pick up a kid, I guess, you know, if that makes sense. Basically to, like, body snatch a kid. Maybe this is, like, you know, basically where the morphs hatch. Let's put it that way. It could be like that, and that's why there's soot coming out of it. But there's, I don't know, like, there's just something about it that seems kind of weird, because, like, I don't know how to explain it. Wouldn't something like that be in the children's wing? Like, this is a box for the adult wing. And so, like, on one hand, no, you wouldn't have the morphs over there because, like, what if somebody sees them and freaks out, right? Like, all of the adults know the truth, so it would make more sense for the morph creation process to be around here. But at the same time, like, those tables and the morphs that we saw are, like, completely different to this, and so I feel like that this doesn't really make sense. I don't know, like, as an explanation, but I can't think of anything else that it could be. The only thing that I'm thinking of is we never found out what happened when Barbara was, like, emitting all of that soot all the way back in episode 1. Like, that's the only thing that I'm sort of like, like, could that be connected to this? Like, is this another coming of age thing in some way? But I don't think that she was in a box. She was in this, like, very white room, whereas this is literally, like, a casket. I don't know. And so, yeah, that's the only thing that I just don't get it. Like, I don't get how it could be connected to anything that we've already seen. And so I feel like that it must be connected to something that we haven't seen. Like, it doesn't seem like it makes sense for there to be morphs in there. It doesn't really make sense for it to be like where the soot is, like, to make the coal and everything. And I don't know, like, it just doesn't seem, and the soot coming out of it doesn't really tell us anything about it either. And so, yeah, I don't know what it is. Now, what's interesting is we see Morph Shirley again, and she's running around this area, and she also makes a little cute, like, noise, like a very anime noise when she's, like, peering around the corner. So I wonder if this could have something to do with Rum in some capacity. Like, what if they use this box to, like, make Shirley be, like, human again? I don't know, because she's, like, not human, obviously, but, like, for Shirley to take human form again or something like that, because right now, like, she's just, like, a morph, right? And so I wonder, like, maybe they could use this to, like, make her come back, or, like, they could, I don't know what they could do exactly, right? Because I feel like it's either one of two things. Like, you have Shirley and Rum, like, remanifest as characters of the cast again as two separate entities because now Shirley has her sense of self. Or I had this other theory that, like, Rummy was already, like, a part of Rum and that Shirley had partially merged with her, like, almost like the unification that Edward and Ed do. So I don't know how that would be connected to all this, but maybe the box could help. Like, maybe, like, they could both get in the box and then everything would be okay. Like, either, like, she would remanifest in the form or she would just sort of combine with Rum until she's strong enough to, like, just, you know, if she wants to do the same thing as, like, Ed and Edward in a sense, like, maybe they would have to combine with each other in order for her to have any, like, strength, which would kind of be fitting in a way, just because it's like, you know, Shirley never formed a personality. She was never strong enough on her own, but then when Rum opened up to her, she started to gain strength with Rum. So it kind of reminds me, this is so random, but of Kingdom Hearts when, like, Ventus, this is like, is this a spoiler for a game that released 10 years ago? Anyway, if you don't want to hear, skip ahead 2 minutes, but when Ventus, like, combined with Sora's heart, like, that's sort of what I'm thinking. And so what if it's like that, where, like, they have it so Rum and Shirley, like, merge together, but, like, they can't do, like, the shadow takeover yet because she's not strong enough. She's just sort of resting, you know, like, inside of Rum until the day when she's, like, strong enough and they're, like, forever unified or something. I don't know. Anyway, so we abandon the box, and I really like this because Emilicio now knows that Kate is coming for her. And I do think that Edward's kind of dumb here because, like, you know, she's just like, nothing. I mean, she's been doing weird stuff, like, don't get me wrong, but you don't want to investigate that, Edward? You weren't curious about what that means? Like, that was just kind of weird. But now she can sort of be, like, resolved to know that Kate is coming to rescue her, right? And so I feel like that even if she did have doubts for a minute, right, that, like, took all of the doubts away. Like, the fact that Kate is ultimately, like, coming to save her. And I really like this little monologue from Emilicio, she's braver than anyone and kinder than anyone too. She's my cherished mistress, right? And so he's like, oh, how absurd, like, we're not getting anywhere, right? And so I think that that's, like, really interesting just because, like, you cannot break her because Kate has made her unbreakable. And I like how frustrated Edward gets too, and then Rolly starts flying, hits the teacup, which I feel like is very much of a metaphor, even though it's tea and not coffee, like, to spill the tea and, like, have it, like, break and shatter on the floor like that. Like, I feel like it's just a representation of, like, what Kate wants to do to the system and all of the adults, because like I said earlier, I thought the whole, like, teacup pouring situation could have been a representation or some kind of metaphor of, like, this is how the adults in the world, like, this is how we drink it, this is how adults drink it, that's what he says, right? And so by Rolly crashing into the teacup, it's Emilicio and Kate basically actively saying, like, well, we will crash into your tea and spill it all over the floor. Like, it's not a very elegant metaphor, but you guys know what I mean. mean? Yeah, and so these two pop up and they're not suspicious at all. They're like, oh, so you did really take her. Let's speak outside, right? Because I feel like that Emilicio probably heard that it was Edward unless he like whispered really, really low. Because at that point, like he just used his normal voice, right? I believe it was the cup that broke after Rolly crashed into it. And then I love how like her blindfold kind of goes down to reveal her eye, and like that Kate is coming for her, and like Kate would never give up on her. It's just so nice. And I just really like this facial expression, how she starts like calling for Kate. There was something here that I wanted to point out, and we didn't really get a good look at this guy, but there are more portraits over here, and this seems to be, I'm gonna go and say it's Ryan's attire, possibly. I can't really tell, and it's very dark even for mine. That head does not look like Ryan's head, actually. That looks more like a woman, and so, or a woman's hairstyle. Not even a woman's hairstyle, it's just not his hair. You know what I mean? It's like his hair is big, and this hair is in like 2 lines, right? And so I feel like that this actually isn't any of the 3rd floor nobles, but it could be nobles that have maybe passed on or something like that, because like looking at it, it doesn't seem like that these portraits are anyone in particular, because their hairstyles don't match up with anybody that we know. I think what's interesting about this is that there is another veiled doll going down the hallway, and so I think what will happen is that Geralt and Aline will basically like find this doll instead by accident. Like they'll basically go on like a wild goose chase, think it's Kate, but then Kate's really with Edward. I could see something like that happening. I don't see why else they would put this here other than for suspense, because they're like, oh yeah, it should be a veiled doll and they should be carrying this. Like, you know, she's doing all of that stuff, like that doll that we saw right here, right? And so I feel like that it would make sense for them to be like, oh yeah, we found her, and then it's just not Kate. It's just some random person. If they are trying to save that living doll, they'll use a veiled doll disguise like Edward did, and they'll be pushing a cart as well. See, and so they basically go off somewhere else, but I feel like that they will ultimately get distracted by the veiled doll that walked by. So again, I really like this. I like her trying to use her powers to like find Rolly and all that stuff. I thought that was great. And then this was like the twist of the century right here, because I was like, oh, you know, like Emilicio was calling for her before, maybe she's hearing that. And then, oh my god, the twist here is so good, because you think that it's her calling, and then I remembered, like, as soon as it happened, I was like, wait, what if Edward's tricking her? That's not good. And then we see that her mouth is tied and her eyes are tied, but Kate is not perceptive. I should actually show you guys that maybe. But Kate's not perceptive enough to notice. Like, she's basically just kind of running on adrenaline, right? So she sees her, and even though this does not make any sense, also, it looks like the sun is rising, by the way, in the back, so we may be running out of time here, and so that's kind of interesting. But anyway, and so yeah, like you see that her mouth is covered. Like, there's no way that she said that, but she doesn't care because she found her. And I think that that's interesting, just because like she threw her caution away, the caution she usually has, because she's been so worried about Emilicio. And Emilicio's like, Mistress Kate, it's such a relief to see you safe. Let's get out of here. But then it's behind you, and obviously Edward's here. And so this was so metal. I loved hearing Emilicio's voice come out of Edward. It was just so weird and like uncanny and creepy and awful. And so, because he says, here at last I see, he says that as Emilicio to sort of showcase that he was mimicking her, and then we get his evil face. And so that is basically where we're ending off for today, guys. In terms of what's going to happen next week, like I said before, I think that it is going to be a stalemate situation. I think that we are going to basically have a case where something interrupts and they get away, and it's not like Edward can be like, oh, go get Kate, I kidnapped her and she left, because people would be like, what the fuck do you mean you kidnapped her, right? And so I feel like that they're gonna get away, whether that's Barbara and Barbie, whether that's Shirley and Rum. I do think it will be Shirley and Rum, because at this point, like, Shirley is hanging around, obviously, and then when you think about it, who is the only person that has not helped Emilicio and Kate yet in this situation? Because when you think about it, right, Kate got help from Patrick and Ricky, from Lou and Louise, from John and Sean, everyone that Emilicio helped along the way. And so when you think about it, who is the final person that got help from Emilicio but has not gotten to help her in return? It was Rum and Shirley. So now the fact that Shirley is like around, I feel like is going to be indicative of something. Like, I feel like that she is going to be the last piece of the puzzle to help them get out of this. Because I can see a couple things. Like, imagine is Shirley and Rum like remanifest and Edward has explaining to do? Like, what if he's like, fuck, like the adults aren't gonna care if I found a malcontent when Shirley and Rum, I was supposed to fail them, yet they're still alive? How the fuck do I explain that? So he's gonna be preoccupied with other shit, is what I'm thinking, is that Shirley and Rum may serve as a distraction. Emilicio and Kate will get away, and then maybe like the end will be like, Rum and Shirley helped us, and we know that they're alive, and we know that they're out there. Like, you know, next season we have to go save them, and it could end on like that sort of cliffhanger. I think that that would kind of be interesting, right? Because imagine if Shirley and Rum, like Shirley is full form now, manifests right in front of Edward, and now she has this like, because I thought that Shirley was gonna be like the strongest of all. I always said that, and people were like, Cal, what the fuck, why are you like this? Because I thought, you know, her being tied to the tree meant that she would be the strongest of all and everything, but it wasn't. It was more of the challenge given, like the difficulty given to the dolls and everything to save their shadow masters. But like I thought like, oh, what if Shirley's the strongest one of all? So what if now, like seeing like Emilicio and Kate in need of help and knowing what she knows, or getting the personality, the little personality that she got from Rum, she knows how important Emilicio is to Rum, and then she goes, or I guess, yeah, that Emilicio is to Rum, and then she's like, whoosh, and does soot power, and Edward's like, what the fuck? And so I feel like that how we're gonna end this is, you got away with it this time. Like, if it wasn't for you meddling kids, I would have like won. But next time I'll be sneakier, right? Like, I think that that's basically how it's gonna work. Like, he is going to be sneakier next time, and that is basically going to facilitate like a season 2. I don't think that we're done with Edward yet trying to catch Kate, but I think that will be done for now. It'll just be a temporary escape where like they're more on their toes and like Edward's on his toes, but it's not like Edward can tell anybody about it, and neither can Kate and Emilicio. And so it's kind of like this, I don't know, like psychological war where it's not like Edward can just be like, yeah, can you believe it? You know, I kidnapped someone and they escaped. How could they do that? Right? Like, he can't tell anyone, so he has to be more crafty next time, but now Kate is also on her guard, and it will be like this game of chess next season. I don't know. But that's sort of what I'm thinking. I did talk for a long time. Not as long as last week, but a little bit too long. And so I hope that you guys enjoyed regardless. I was like, oh guys, I don't have that much to talk about. But we are getting into like the very last episode. So even if there wasn't a lot of like analyze each bit of dialogue, I did have a lot to say in terms of theory crafting and stuff like that. I definitely need a drink after all of this. Some hydration. Anyway, so I hope that you guys enjoyed. This is our like second to last discussion. I'm gonna be so sad, but I hope that we end off on a good note. I hope that it's exciting. I hope that we get a season 2. Like, I just want everything to be okay. I want there to be a season 2. I want them to get back on track with the manga. And like, that's what I wish for. I hope that like everything will turn out all right with this anime only ending. And that is all from me, everybody. Remember, if you want to support me directly, you can check out the Patreon or becoming a YouTube membership member and all of that sort of stuff. That would really help me out. And also let me continue to make videos like these. And I will see you next week, everyone. Bye.